Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear is dark, twisted, and utterly unforgettable. Comment below if you think you could handle living next door to someone like this. The night was unusually quiet in Salt Lake City. Streetlights flickered against the worn pavement, and the cold November air carried a faint, almost imperceptible hum from a distant freeway. At 11:47 p.m., a 911 call shattered the silence. Frantic, disjointed, and laced with panic. A voice, trembling and barely coherent, kept repeating the words. "He's in the house. My mom. My baby." By the time the police arrived, the small duplex on the corner of 3rd Avenue was eerily still. Neighbors had called earlier, reporting the landlord, a man named Alexander Tran, behaving oddly, pacing, muttering to himself, insisting that tenants obey him. But nobody imagined what waited inside. The first officer to enter froze at the doorway. The living room was a scene out of a nightmare. Furniture overturned, a coffee table splintered into jagged shards, and the walls bore silent witness to the chaos. Dark streaks of blood staining the beige wallpaper. On the floor, the lifeless bodies of a grandmother and a tiny infant, barely 2 months old, lay tangled in each other's arms. The police called it a horrific tableau of domestic violence, but for those who knew the family, it was incomprehensible. Neighbors whispered about Tran, the landlord who had always been a fixture in the building, quiet, polite on the surface, yet insidiously controlling. He had offered a young tenant, known only as AP, a place to live after she and her child had been evicted from another residence. At first, it seemed like generosity, but soon, the lines between kindness and obsession blurred. Tran began showing up unannounced, insisting on checking on the apartment, pressing for conversations that made AP uncomfortable. And then, the marriage proposals began. AP had politely refused, but Tran's fixation only intensified. He started leaving notes, small gifts, and cryptic messages hinting that their fates were somehow intertwined. He believed that she owed him, that living under his roof made her beholden to him. It was the kind of twisted logic that, in hindsight, was terrifyingly obvious. Detectives combing through the duplex found signs of planning. A locked basement that smelled faintly of bleach, a half-empty notebook filled with disturbing sketches and obsessively written names, dates, and threats. Every inch of the place whispered obsession, jealousy, and control. Then came the discovery that changed everything. A small, unmarked envelope tucked behind a loose brick in the fireplace contained photos, not just of AP, but of her family. Her mother and her infant daughter, with handwritten notes in Tran's meticulous script. "They are yours if you refuse me." The room felt heavier as the officers absorbed the implications. This wasn't a random act of violence. It was a calculated attempt to punish someone for denying him what he wanted. And when they opened the locked basement door, what they found changed everything. The basement door creaked open, and what lay beyond made even the most seasoned detectives take a step back. The air was thick, musty, and metallic, with a faint tang of blood. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, old furniture shoved into corners, and in the dim light, the walls seemed to close in. But it wasn't the clutter that made the room chilling. It was the evidence of obsession meticulously arranged, as if the killer wanted someone to see it, to understand his reasoning. On a small table sat a series of photographs, each one more disturbing than the last. Tran had documented every interaction with his tenant and her family, marking dates, times, and cryptic annotations. Scribbled notes lined the margins. "She will belong to me. They are obstacles. If I cannot have her, no one will." The detective whispered under his breath. "This isn't just murder. It's a declaration." Meanwhile, outside the house, a tense manhunt was underway. Officers had received a tip. Tran had a car hidden in a nearby alley, likely ready for escape. Every street corner in the neighborhood had a squad car stationed, but Tran was cunning. The neighbors reported seeing him the day before, pacing, muttering to himself, seemingly. Then came the shocking revelation. Tran had left a coded message in the basement, a note indicating he was planning to flee the city, possibly the country. But more alarmingly, he hinted at a future target, someone he believed had interfered with his plans. Law enforcement now had to race against the clock. The man responsible for the triple murder was not only intelligent and calculating, but unhinged, and he had no intention of stopping. And just when it seemed the net was closing in, a call came in from the local pawn shop. Someone matching Tran's description had tried to sell a handgun earlier that evening. The investigation had taken a dark turn. The suspect was still at large, and every lead hinted at an even more disturbing layer to his obsession. The city was on edge. Every patrol car, every uniformed officer was alert. Alexander Tran had vanished into the night, but his presence was felt everywhere, in the whispers of neighbors, in the fear lingering at the duplex, and in the chilling thought that he might strike again. Law enforcement had no time to lose. Every second could mean another life at risk. A break came when a neighbor recalled seeing Tran slipping into a shadowed alley near the freeway, carrying a duffel bag. Officers fanned out, tracing his route through narrow streets, abandoned warehouses, and quiet parking lots. It was a tense chase, each corner revealing nothing, each shadow a possible hiding spot. Tran was clever, but desperation makes even the most meticulous planner careless. Inside the duplex, detectives continued cataloging the basement evidence. Among the photographs and notebooks, a single page stood out. It wasn't just a note, it was a confession, written in fragmented sentences and obsessive loops. They refused me. They ruined what could be mine. I will make it right. Everyone will see. It revealed the horrifying psychology behind the murders, a mix of entitlement, rage, and obsession that had metastasized into deadly violence. Then came a tip from an unexpected source, Tran's mother. Though estranged and reportedly frustrated by her son's behavior, she provided a critical lead. Tran had confided in her, hinting at a temporary hideout near the outskirts of the city, a place he considered untouchable. It was a chilling reminder that sometimes the people closest to the suspect know the darkness inside him. Police converged on the location, an old abandoned cabin in a wooded area. As they approached, Tran's figure became visible through the mist, hunched, tense, and armed. A standoff ensued. Negotiators tried to reason with him, but his fixation on his lost love and perceived betrayal had consumed him entirely. Every word he uttered dripped with delusion. Hours passed. The tension was suffocating. Then, a single mistake. Tran stepped outside the cabin, distracted by a distant sound. Officers moved in. Within moments, he was subdued, handcuffed, and taken into custody. Relief swept over the team, but it was tempered by the grim reality of the lives lost and the trauma left behind. In the weeks that followed, the trial unfolded like a real-life nightmare. The prosecution presented an overwhelming case, meticulous planning, obsessive stalking, and deliberate murder. Witnesses described Tran's escalating behavior, from subtle manipulation to full-blown violence. The defense offered little, unable to disprove the cold, calculated evidence. On the day of sentencing, the courtroom was silent except for the sobs of family members. Tran received 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, one for each life he had senselessly destroyed. The judge's words echoed through the chamber. This was not a crime of passion. This was a crime of obsession, control, and malice. Justice demands that you never see freedom again. Even as the gavel fell, a chilling truth lingered. Obsession, when unchecked, can turn the most familiar faces into monsters.
and in the minds of those left behind, the memory of the grandmother's gentle voice, the infant's soft cries, and the friend's laughter would never fade. They thought the nightmare ended with his arrest, but sometimes, in the dark corners of obsession, echoes remain, reminders that even in the daylight, fear can linger.